Hi guys, it's Matt. Welcome to the video. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery and I am your mind and movement mentor here to help you. So today I want to talk about how gambling addiction can be linked into other behavioural addictions. Now, there are some of these that I don't have personal experience with and some of these that I very much do. And I will reference both. So a couple of classic ones that people can become cross-addicted to in addition to gambling are drugs and alcohol. Now, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with this because I'm not a drug taker and I am teetotal, I'm not a drinker, but I know friends that very much do. And I think, like with addiction, essentially it serves a purpose of you are trying to escape from something and you are trying to change your state. And maybe if you are not gambling and you're looking to proactively abstain and recover from gambling, it's very easy to still be in that mode of seeking something that's going to do that numbing, like soothing type job of escapism, and substances like drugs, alcohol can very much do that. A couple of that I do have personal experience with. The first is binge eating. Now, this is not entirely the same because I wouldn't say I was necessarily fully addicted to food, but I could definitely relate to the idea of wanting to use food to change my state, possibly in a direct void to replace gambling. I feel like in the early days of stopping gambling, where there's that kind of that anhedonic mindset of just nothing is particularly pleasurable. I remember vividly kind of chasing food as an antidote for that, in particular the high carbohydrate, high fat, processed garbage, which this is maybe another video, but a lot of the ultra processed foods are designed to be addictive and very palatable in other ways anyway, so it doesn't necessarily need to be an addiction that you're escaping from to get addicted to those. They are hyper addictive as they are. But one that I do definitely have experience with is compulsive spending and or shopping. Now, this is also quite common, and I think, again, born out of the same place of wanting to try to find something to escape from the current state, maybe being in a bit of a vulnerable position post gambling. This is also something that's been quite rife at the same time as a gambling addiction, but it's been one that has kind of have carried on at times of recovery period. And I think there's like a really interesting rationale behind this, in a sense that you can very easily justify it to yourself that I'm not wasting all this money on gambling. I normally would spend X on gambling, or my compulsive gambling spend has been an average of this over a month for the last whatever years. Look at me with all this extra money that I have now that I'm not gambling, and I'm going to go and treat myself. And that is a dangerous mindset, I think, if it's coming from the wrong place, because like all addictions inherently bad, I think it can definitely come from that place of you're trying to chase that high that doesn't really exist. You're trying to chase that dopamine spike, that state change. And in the same way, when you're gambling, you feel like the answer to that is in the thrill of placing the next bet or spin of the roulette wheel. It's kind of like it is in the next purchase. And they've done psychological studies on this about kind of how it feels in your brain to kind of add things to basket, whether it's online shopping or, shall I make the purchase, shan't I? Or there's a coupon code, or there's free delivery, that kind of thing. And much like gambling, you make the purchase and it can be incredibly fleeting, almost immediately before the product has even arrived on your doorstep. it's almost long forgotten, and any kind of feel-good factor or neurochemical type endorphins are well and truly diminished. And thus, same as gambling addiction, you can kind of want to revisit that wheel-like process of, okay, let's go and find something else to buy. Let's look at the sizes, look at the prices, do the add to basket, put the bank detail or payment details in, proceed to purchase. And it can end up being quite problematic because you're spending money often beyond your means that you don't have on purchases that you don't necessarily need, that don't add a tremendous amount of value to your life, depreciating assets. So whether it's material objects, shoes, clothes, handbags, shiny belt buckles, whatever it is. In some ways it's human nature, but there's definitely a clear kind of dovetail. And I think what's dangerous about it is, and I'll make another video for sure on this, I do in some ways think it is a good way to gamify your recovery and be like, okay, I haven't gambled in 90 days, 180 days, 365 days, and kind of look at milestones that keep you engaged, almost like benchmarks. And there's nothing inherently wrong with maybe having a little treat or a little celebration at each milestone. I think that can actually be quite healthy to kind of help balance you and give you like a little bit of a reward as a celebration for achieving it. But the other side of that of just, I feel the void, I feel like I'm entitled to this because I've got extra money now that I'm not gambling, is very much kind of born out of that problematic addictive nature of just trying to change your state. And I think this one's been quite subtle for me because, you know, you could argue, with no disrespect to anyone that's maybe struggles with drugs and alcohol, but you can almost see the faux pas in those substances a bit more than you can in something like food, because you've got to eat every day, or shopping because you earn money, you should be able to treat yourself. And it can be really quite insidious, and I've noticed this in myself, that it can almost be like a little bit of a precursor into relapse, where I just start to maybe look at a few things that are just outside of my price bracket of what I should be spending on, like I say, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, whether it's booking a holiday or something like that. And then I start to kind of get a similar sort of thrill about that I get as more of a dumbed down version of, but the similar kind of thrill to what I would get maybe as I'm building up towards a bet. And there lies the problem, because then you can kind of easily blur the lines into, well, I'm in this kind of thrill-seeking mode. I want to buy these trainers, for example. I can't really afford them. Why don't I try and win them? And then I balance the books nicely. If I can win the money, then I get the trainers, which my brain's telling me I desperately want. And then I haven't had to pay for them. So all's kind of good. And this has happened to me a few times, and I think it's something that I'm very much on guard to now, of just how there's certain decisions that you can make that are a gateway that push you much more closer into relapse or problem gambling behavior than you would realize, especially if you are a compulsive gambler like myself and you are looking to stay proactively in recovery and abstain. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this is helpful in some ways. I often get all over the place in these videos, slightly abstract ways of thinking about gambling addiction and recovery. I always say I make these videos for like a younger version of myself, and wish this kind of content was available when I was really struggling with gambling. So if you do know anyone that is a compulsive gambler or interested in these kind of topics, please feel free to share this video with them, help me reach more people. Comment below with your experience. I respond to all of the comments. And please give the video a thumbs up. It helps me support the channel and reach more people with a message that I'm incredibly passionate about. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.